Minion. You know, you've been causing quite a bit of trouble lately, haven't you? I mean, how many times can you really mix up Gru's plans before he finally loses it? Remember that time you decided to grab the shrink ray? Yeah, you thought you were being helpful, but instead, you ended up shrinking the moon and almost sent us all into chaos. What were you thinking? And don't even get me started on that wild adventure with the jelly guns. Do you even know how close you were to turning the whole lab into a sticky mess? It's like you're drawn to chaos. But here's the thing, little buddy. You got so much potential, so much energy. You're always the first one to jump into action, ready to take on whatever crazy task Gru throws your way. But have you ever stopped to think, maybe just for a second, about what might happen if you actually slowed down and thought things through? All right, let's go back a bit. Remember that time you were left alone with those delicious bananas? Yeah, I know you love bananas more than anything in the world, but did you really have to turn the whole place upside down just to get a few? You ended up creating a mess that took days to clean up. And for what? A few minutes of munching on your favorite snack. You've got to start thinking ahead. It's all fun and games until Gru's yelling at you because the lab's flooded with banana juice. So here's a tip. Maybe next time, try pacing yourself. You can still enjoy those bananas without causing a disaster. But hey, it's not all bad. You've had some pretty heroic moments too. Like that time you risked everything to save Agnes's unicorn. You knew how much that little stuffed animal meant to her. And you didn't hesitate for a second. That was pure Minion bravery. And that's the kind of thing that makes you so special. You've got this huge heart, and when you really focus, you can do amazing things. So why not channel that energy more often? Imagine what you could accomplish if you just took a moment to plan before diving headfirst into every situation. Speaking of diving headfirst, let's talk about that time you tried to pilot the rocket. Now I get it. You wanted to help out, and you've always been curious about those big, shiny buttons. But flying a rocket, that's not something you can just wing. You almost sent the whole crew into outer space without a way back. If there's one thing you need to learn, it's that some things require a bit of knowledge and a whole lot of caution. Next time you're faced with something that big, maybe take a step back and let the experts handle it. You'll still get to be a hero, but without putting everyone in danger. But let's be real for a second. You're a minion, and chaos kind of runs in your DNA. I'm not saying you should change who you are, not at all. That would be impossible anyway. What I'm saying is, you can be smart about it. There's a time and place for everything, and sometimes the best way to be helpful is to think before you act. Imagine if, instead of running around like a headless chicken, you took a second to consider the consequences. Maybe then, Gru wouldn't have to keep fixing your mistakes, and you could actually save the day instead of almost ruining it. And speaking of saving the day, remember the time you teamed up with the other minions to take down Scarlet Overkill? That was a masterclass in teamwork, and you played a huge role in it. You guys were unstoppable. And that's because you finally learned to work together, to communicate, and to trust each other. That's the kind of minion you should strive to be all the time. Sure, you might have been a little clumsy along the way, but you got the job done, and that's what counts. But you can't just rely on your fellow minions to always have your back. You've got to start taking responsibility for your actions. Look at Kevin, Bob, and Stuart. They're always looking out for each other, always thinking about the bigger picture. You've got that same potential, but you've got to use it. It's not enough to just be funny or cute. You've got to be smart, too. Think about the future. Think about what could happen if you don't stop to think, and then make the right choice. You've got so much going for you, but you're holding yourself back with all these impulsive decisions. It's time to step up. Time to show Gru and the rest of the minions that you're capable of more than just causing chaos. You've got the heart of a hero, but now it's time to develop the mind of one, too. You've already shown that you can be brave, that you can be selfless, and that you care about your friends. Now it's time to show that you can be wise, too. So, where were we? Yes, your potential. You've got so much of it, but you keep letting those wild impulses get in the way. Now let's talk about one of your most famous stunts. The time you decided to mess with the villain's lair, thinking it would be a good idea to take some souvenirs. I mean, really? Did it not occur to you that touching things labeled dangerous might not be the best idea? Sure, it was all fun and games until the alarm went off and the entire place nearly went up in flames. And the worst part, you thought it was hilarious. But let me tell you, not everyone shares your sense of humor, especially when their lives are on the line. But that's exactly what makes you so fascinating. You're fearless. Or maybe it's that you're a little too fearless. You're always up for a challenge, and that's something most people admire about you. But bravery without caution is just recklessness. And you, my friend, have been walking that fine line for far too long. There's nothing wrong with being bold, but you've got to start thinking about the consequences of your actions. That's how you turn bravery into true heroism. Now, I know you love a good adventure. Remember when you and the other minions went on that wild quest to find the perfect boss? From the dinosaurs to Napoleon, you were always on the move, never settling down. But here's the thing. Did you ever stop to think about what you were leaving behind? Every time you jumped from one boss to another, you left a trail of chaos in your wake. And sure, it was all part of the journey. But maybe if you'd taken a moment to think about the impact of your actions, things could have turned out differently. And speaking of thinking things through, let's not forget about that time you nearly ruined Gru's big heist with your obsession over the fart gun. Yes, I know it's hilarious, and yes, I know you love a good joke, but there's a time and place for everything. And in the middle of a top-secret mission, probably not the best time to start playing around with noisemakers. You've got to learn when to be serious. Not everything is a game, and sometimes you've got to put the jokes aside and focus on the task at hand. That's what makes the difference between a good minion and a great one. But let's flip this around for a second. You've also had moments where you've shown incredible ingenuity, like that time you helped Gru build the anti-gravity serum. Who would have thought that a minion like you could come up with something so clever? Sure, it had its quirks, but it worked. And it's moments like that, when you're really thinking, really focusing, that you show just how brilliant you can be. Imagine if you could tap into that side of yourself more often. You'd be unstoppable. You've got the creativity, the energy, and the drive. Now you just need to pair it with some discipline. And discipline doesn't mean losing your fun side. It just means knowing when to turn it on and when to turn it off. Think about Gru. He's got his moments of silliness, sure. But when it's time to get serious, he's all business. And that's what makes him such a great leader. You could learn a thing or two from him. You don't have to give up who you are, but you do have to learn how to control it. That's the key to becoming the best version of yourself. Remember when you almost gave up the minion life for a quiet, simple existence? That was a tough time for all of you. And honestly, it was a pretty mature decision. But the truth is, you were born for more than just blending in. You were born to stand out, to be part of something bigger, to be part of a family, a minion family. And with that comes responsibility. You can't just run off and do your own thing without thinking about the consequences for the rest of the group. That's not how family works. You've got to start considering how your actions affect everyone else. But here's the good news. You're not in this alone. You've got your fellow minions, and you've got Gru. They believe in you, even when you mess up, and that's what makes them so special. They see the good in you, even when you can't see it yourself. So why not try living up to that? Why not try being the minion they know you can be? It's not about being perfect. It's about being better. It's about making the right choices, even when they're hard. And speaking of hard choices, let's talk about that moment when you almost let the villain win. You know the one I'm talking about. The time you had to decide between doing what was easy and doing what was right. It would have been so simple to just give in, to let the bad guys take over. But you didn't. You chose to fight, even when the odds were against you. That was a turning point for you, and it showed everyone just how strong you really are. But here's the thing. You don't have to wait for a life or death situation to make good choices. You can start now with the little things. Because here's the truth. You've got it in you to be great. You've always had it in you. You just need to learn how to harness that power, how to channel it in the right direction. And once you do, there's no limit to what you can achieve.